Some places get all the attention, the big names, the famous hauntings everyone's already heard 100 times. But tonight, we're not going there. We're stepping into the shadows, into places people don't talk about enough. Places with stories that feel a little too real, a little too close, and a lot harder to explain. These are the kind of places where something just feels off the moment you arrive, where history didn't just happen, it left something behind. So turn the lights down, get comfortable, and let's talk about 3 haunted places that deserve way more attention than they get. The town of Jefferson, Texas looks like one of those peaceful southern towns where time moves a little slower. Brick streets, old storefronts, tall oak trees, and houses that have been standing for over a century. But Jefferson also has a reputation. Some people say the town is beautiful, others say it's one of the most haunted places in Texas. And sitting quietly on Mosley Street is a house that has built one of the strangest reputations of them all. A historic home known as the Grove. The Grove was built in 1861, right before the Civil War began. Back then, Jefferson wasn't just a small town. It was a booming river port city where steamboats came up the Red River carrying cotton, supplies, and travelers. Money was flowing through the town, and wealthy families began building elegant homes. One of those homes was the Grove, built by Frank Stilley and his wife Minerva. The house had large columns, wide porches, and beautiful gardens. It looked like the kind of place where families would sit outside in rocking chairs, drinking sweet tea and watching the sun go down. But not long after the house was built, strange stories began to follow the property. One of the earliest clues that something wasn't right came in 1882 when a man named T.C. Burke bought the home and moved his family in. You would think buying a large historic home would be exciting. Instead, the family stayed only a short time before suddenly leaving the house. When people asked Burke why he moved so quickly, he didn't give a long explanation. He simply told people they couldn't live there. Now, if someone says that about a house, that's usually not a good sign. Over the years, the house passed through several owners, but the stories about strange happenings never stopped. The most famous ghost said to haunt the house is believed to be Minerva Stilley, the woman who helped build the home. Visitors have reported seeing the ghost of a woman in white walking through the yard or along the porch. But the strange part is the path she walks. People say she sometimes walks straight through what is now a wall inside the house. Paranormal investigators later realized that the wall wasn't there in the original design of the home. In the 1800s, that space was actually part of the porch, which means if the stories are true, the ghost might still be walking the path that existed when she was alive, and Minerva may not be the only spirit wandering around the Grove. Visitors and residents have reported seeing a mysterious man walking through the garden as if he's looking for something. Others have heard footsteps upstairs when no one was there. Some people have reported mirrors suddenly falling from the walls and breaking without explanation. A few visitors even claim they heard faint crying or voices echoing through the house late at night, the kind of sounds that make you check every room and then decide it might be a good idea to leave. One of the most well-known residents of the Grove was Louise Young, who lived in the house for many years during the 1900s. At first, she would casually talk about the spirits in the house, almost like they were just unusual roommates. In the South, some people call ghosts haints, but as time went on, the stories became less amusing. Louise began seeing shadowy figures around the property and sometimes believed people were inside the house with her. She even installed security lights outside and occasionally called police to report intruders, but when officers arrived, they never found anyone there. Some historians believe the haunting stories may be connected to the violent history that once took place in the area. During the Reconstruction era after the Civil War, Jefferson experienced racial tensions and mob violence. One tragic incident known as the Stockade Case involved the killing of several freed black men not far from Mosley Street. While historians can't prove any connection, many people believe that when terrible events happen in a place, the energy of those events can linger for generations. Today, the Grove still stands quietly on Mosley Street, surrounded by trees and old gardens. It looks peaceful during the day, like just another beautiful historic home in a southern town. But many visitors say the house feels different once the sun goes down. Cold spots appear in certain rooms. Strange sounds echo through the halls. And sometimes people swear they feel like someone is watching them from the shadows. Maybe it's just an old house settling after more than 160 years. Or maybe the past hasn't fully left the Grove. Either way, the house has become one of the most famous haunted locations in Texas. And if the stories are true, the former residents may still be walking those halls, making sure the house they built is never truly empty. If walls could talk, the ones inside the Magnolia Hotel would probably say, "Yeah, you might want to sleep with the lights on." This place started out in 1840 as a humble log cabin built by Texas Ranger James Campbell, basically a frontier Airbnb before reviews were a thing. Over time, it evolved into a stagecoach stop, saloon, hotel, and even a jail, meaning people didn't just check in. Some got locked in. Now, here's where things go left, fast. Campbell himself didn't exactly ride off into the sunset. After tensions with native tribes escalated, he was killed and buried somewhere near the property, and nobody's entirely sure where. So imagine building a hotel on top of unresolved history like that. Yeah, that's already a bad Yelp review waiting to happen. As the place grew into a full-blown hotel in the mid-1800s, it became the social hotspot of Seguin. Dances, drinks, travelers passing through, and apparently spirits deciding, you know what? I'm gonna stay here forever. Today, people claim there are at least 13 ghosts hanging around like permanent guests who never pay their bill. Honestly, at that point, you might as well just start charging them rent. Let's talk about some of these roommates, because they are not subtle. There's a little girl named Itzy who died of yellow fever and still reportedly lingers, moving toys and giving off that eerie baby powder smell because nothing says goodnight like ghost daycare. Then there's a traveling salesman named JJ who apparently had a very bad stay and decided to permanently check out. And yes, he's still around, which really raises questions about customer service back then. Oh, and we cannot skip the cowboy. Legend says he dramatically jumped off a stagecoach and ended his life outside the hotel, which means even the parking lot isn't safe. You don't just worry about ghosts inside. You're like, do I need to spiritually parallel park? Then there's one of the darkest stories tied to the place, a murderer who stayed at the hotel in 1874 before committing a brutal crime involving a young girl named Emma. The story is so disturbing that people believe his presence never left. Basically, if the vibe in one room suddenly feels off, yeah, that might not just be bad lighting. And just when you think it couldn't get worse, the hotel also saw multiple suicides, heartbreak tragedies, and even a squatter who died inside during its abandoned years. At this point, the Magnolia isn't just haunted. It's like a historical collection of things that went very, very wrong. Modern-day visitors and paranormal investigators swear the activity is still going strong. Doors slamming, voices calling out names, coins rolling across floors like they're trying to pay for their stay, and shadow figures just casually walking around like they're late for a meeting. Even contractors renovating the place reportedly quit because the vibes were just that bad. And if a construction worker says, "Nah, I'm good," you know it's serious. So yeah, The Magnolia Hotel isn't just one of the most haunted places in Texas. It's basically a full-time ghost convention with no closing hours. And the wild part? People still go there on purpose, booking stays like, I just want to relax. Relax? In a building where even the ghosts got backstories? That's not a vacation. That's a spiritual group project you didn't sign up for. If you ever find yourself rolling through Palestine, minding your business, maybe thinking about grabbing something to eat or just enjoying the quiet East Texas vibe, you might accidentally stumble across the old Bowers mansion. And that's when your peaceful little day takes a sharp left turn into, why does it feel like something is watching me from the upstairs window? Territory. Because on the surface, it looks like your classic historic Southern home. Big, proud, a little too quiet. But underneath that polished exterior is a whole lot of something ain't right here. Now, the mansion itself dates back to the late 1800s, built during a time when folks believed two things very strongly. One, bigger houses meant bigger respect, and two, nobody questioned anything slightly creepy because everybody was too busy surviving. The Bowers family who lived there had status, money, and all the expectations that came with it, which basically meant hosting gatherings where everyone smiled politely while secretly judging each other's curtains. But like most old houses that have seen a little too much life, joy wasn't the only thing settling into those walls. There was grief, loss, and just enough mystery to make you side-eye the entire place. And here's where things start to get interesting. People who've been inside, or even just lingered too long outside, have reported that the house doesn't feel empty, even when it absolutely is. You ever walk into a place and immediately feel like you just interrupted something? Yeah, that's the vibe. Cold spots drift through rooms like they're on a mission. Doors have been known to move when nobody's around. And there's this persistent feeling that someone upstairs is pacing, even when nobody's lived there in years. Which is rude, honestly. If you're going to haunt a place, at least be quiet about it. One of the most talked about bits of haunted history involves sightings of shadowy figures. Because of course it does. These ghosts never just sit down and relax. They always pacing like they forgot where they left something in 1892. Visitors have claimed to see figures moving past windows or standing at the top of staircases, just long enough for you to question your eyesight, your sanity, and every decision that led you to be there after sunset. And the way these sightings happen, quick, subtle, almost like the house is testing you, makes it worse. Like it's saying, "You saw that, right? No? Cool, I'll be back." Then there are the sounds, and this is where it gets borderline disrespectful. Footsteps, clear as day. Not creaks, not old house settling. Nah, actual footsteps, like somebody decided to go for a late-night stroll in boots. People have reported hearing movement in empty rooms, faint voices that don't quite form words, and the occasional noise that makes you freeze and go, okay, who else is here? Spoiler, nobody you can see. Which is somehow worse than if there actually was someone there. Now let's talk about the energy of the place, because that's where things get a little personal. Some folks say the spirits tied to the mansion aren't exactly aggressive, but they're definitely present. Like that one person at a party who doesn't say anything but just stands in the corner watching everybody. You can feel it. This heavy, watchful presence that follows you from room to room, like it's politely making sure you don't touch anything you shouldn't. And honestly, it's hard not to feel like maybe the house just never let go of the people who once called it home. Of course, like any good haunted location, there are plenty of skeptics who say it's just an old house doing old house things. Wood shifting, temperature changes, your brain playing tricks on you. And sure, that might explain one or two weird moments. But when you've got multiple people at different times, all describing the same kind of experiences, seeing figures, hearing footsteps, feeling watched. You start to think maybe the house isn't just holding memories. Maybe it's holding on to something else too. So if you ever decide to visit the Bowers Mansion, just know what you're signing up for. It's beautiful, it's historic, and it's got just enough strange energy to keep things interesting in the worst, or best, way possible.